to our free live webinar on live prepared questions. My name is Debbie Overstee. I have been using Right Start for a long time. I started with my older children, moved them into level E, transitioned them into level E, and then my youngest two actually did level B and then all the way through. So we've gone through all the levels and level G. So I'm excited to be here to get to answer some questions. My children are all older now and higher math, and some are in college, but I also have my grandchildren that I get to do this with. So it's exciting. So one of the first questions, and these are questions that I do some of the book fairs around Texas. And so these are a lot of questions we get on at book fairs, or we might get on the internet, someone asking on Facebook or on our website. So before I go any further, I do want to say that if you have any questions, type them in the chat. And then when I get to the end, I will answer those, or maybe it goes along with what I'm talking about. So we will get started. I just need to get my page moved. So what makes Right Start different? And we do have other information, and I will give you a link at the end of this, but just from my own perspective, one of the things that I appreciated about Right Start is that it is research based. This is a little information from Dr. Cotter, and you can actually find this on our website. But it tells more about her, how she has her bachelor's degree in electronics, and now she went and got her master's in mathematics. And Right Start is the outcome of all her research. So I like the fact that this is a research based curriculum. And what I love is, and I've got to meet Dr. Cotter on occasion, is that she is continually learning and she's still doing research. She's researching now more on how the brain works. We've learned more about how the brain works in the last 10 years than we've learned in the last 100 years. And she's adapted that. And that's where the second edition has come out of, is more of her research of how the brain actually is working. So as a parent, I thought math was going to be easier to teach than reading when I started homeschooling, and I found out differently. And I found out because I really didn't understand math, and I didn't even know I didn't understand it until I started teaching it, because I could do math, but there is a difference between doing math and understanding math. And I love that Dr. Cotter, she is such a math-minded person. She takes you through the lessons, teaching you to understand also. So not only are your children learning, you are learning right along with her or with them. The other thing that's cool is the manipulative. Yes, it is a lot of manipulatives, and I know people are like, "Oh, how do I store them?" There are so many different ways people store these manipulatives. You do what works best for you, but the difference of these manipulatives that I like the tiles, and I have one right here. We use these tiles not just for the patterns, and you can see it here on right here, these tiles, they come in different colors. These are actually 1-inch tiles. So children will learn to measure with these tiles. We also have the centimeter cubes. I know it's a little harder to see, but what they're going to do is they're going to compare how many centimeters go into an inch. And they're going to be practicing with this long before they ever use a ruler. So I love it because they're gaining understanding. They're hands on. It's one of the things Dr. Cotter is realizing more and more, the importance of hands on manipulatives for children to use to help them grasp with their understanding. Another tool, I had to add because I'm going to use that in a minute, but the fraction chart. Love, love, love this fraction chart. I never understood fractions until I started teaching my children using this fraction chart. And I love that it comes in individual pieces. So you can actually go down and you can compare and you can start seeing how much 1/2 actually is out of all. It goes all the way down to the tenths. There's so much we do with this fraction chart, but I just love the linear version that we use. It really brings understanding. And then the last thing I'll do on the manipulatives, I didn't want to pull out the balance because I don't have a really big screen right here. That would be kind of hard to see. Is like our abacus. And right here, I entered 4 10s and 7 1s. And then we have what are the place value cards. Sorry, this is a little bit more awkward than I thought it was going to be. So like we have 4 10 7 or 47, because that's one thing we do differently is how we say our numbers in the tens, but only for a season. And then we have it on the abacus. What I love with young children is we can ask them, well, which is bigger number, the 4 or the 7? Now, little children, young children who aren't, still learning might say, well, the 7's bigger. And then I love that you can say, well, show me what you entered. Show me how you entered the 7. They could point to the 7. Show me what you entered for the 4. And they point, and all of a sudden you can see in their eyes that understanding. Wait a minute, this isn't 4 1s. Those are 4 10s. So I love that the manipulatives that we use really help to teach for understanding. And then you can deconstruct it, the 4 10s, the 7. Place value is one of the harder concepts for my children to grasp in some of the other curriculums that we used. And yes, this was back a little bit further in the day before we had a lot more of the information we have now on the internet. But when I started Right Start, that was my gauge of, well, I like this curriculum or not, by how it taught place value. And I was blown away. It wasn't anything like I've ever taught before. It was a little awkward at first calling it 410, 510, or 510 6. But now I actually think like that a lot. And it has helped tremendously, not only in my understanding, but I see it in my children's understanding. Another thing that makes Right Start different is teaching for understanding. This is just a small sample off of our website. Not to be my video, it's making me hard to see my page. Anyway, here's one of our lessons. Enter 4 and 6 on the top 2 wires of the abacus. So the children are actually doing something and they're entering. We're not just telling them how 6 minus 4 is 2. They are going to actually see this and learn it through their understanding. Sorry. I am trying to mute. Someone just joined. Usually I have the power to mute, and oh, there we go. It's muted, so we're good. Anyway, so you ask the child, what is the difference in quantity between 4 and 6? This is a program that makes your child have to think. And thinking is good. And sometimes they're a little frustrated because they may not get it right away. And that's okay, because it's actually in that struggle and that frustration that their brains are starting to connect and they're starting to learn. And then they base things on other things and we move on. So you can ask, did you add 4 and 6 to find the difference? No. Well, what did you do? We subtracted. So then you ask them to put the numbers in the whole part circle set. And this is some of the things that makes Right Start different. Just how we ask the questions. It is parent interactive. It's important for you to talk to your children, to get them to answer, to be able to explain things. That shows that they are understanding. All right, get my page to move. And then math card games. We use a lot of games to reinforce the concepts and the strategies that the children are learning. Some of the games my children played, love the games. And there's a couple games they weren't too fond of, but that's okay. We just played more of the games that they enjoyed. And sometimes we modified the games to make it more fun for us. And that's the beauty of homeschooling and the beauty of using these games is you can modify. But a lot of them are great just the way they are. And then we have our website, and right up here you see it's rightstartmath.com. So if you've never been there, you can give us a visit. We have all sorts of information there. But under our curriculum, if you click, and I'm not going to click because this is just a copy, it will say the Right Start difference. And so here's more information if you need to visually look at something to read something, to grasp, or even to show your husband, this is a great resource to show them what makes Right Start different. All right, I get a lot of this. What about counting? Because Right Start does not put an emphasis on counting, but it's not that we don't do any kind of counting, but there's a difference between um, putting numbers, here's an example. I put, okay, we're driving by the field and there's cows. Children just have a natural aptitude to want to count. How many cows are there? Young children really don't have a grasp of what the numbers are. They could say, and this is my grandson who's 4 right now, and he like 1, 2, 3, 6, 12, 9, 19. No clue. Do I stop him? No, but I do try to help him to count properly in order. However, you as an adult looking at this and children who are learning to subitize and recognize quantities could immediately see, oh, there's 5 cows. And then you can look at the other cows. Oh, 3 more, there's 8, 2 more, oh, there's 10. So that's the difference between counting and really understanding quantity. It's not that we don't count, we do count. But when it comes to computation, we want children to understand quantity. This is a great way to show using the abacus when we count 1, 2, 3, 4. They are seeing the quantity. There is an article that that's on our website about math and the young child. I just want to read something to you quickly. It says counting does not contribute to a child's understanding of quantity. If you ask a very young child to count 4 objects, and then you ask him to bring you 4, that child will usually only bring the 4th object, not the entire quantity. In such counting, the child presumes you are naming the objects and they lose the concept of the whole. So when we do, we like to play hide and go seek at our house. And when the grandkids are over, and I refer to them a lot just because they're so young right now, and it's just reminding me of how things are. They love to count. And my 4-year-old is getting better at counting 1 through 10 and then knowing it's time to go count. But there's times he'll be 1, 2, 5, 6. Okay, here I come. And we laugh and we indulge him because he doesn't know any different. But as they're learning to count, I try really hard. Like if there's 2 cars, I'll say, how many cars are there? And I'll use my fingers. Oh, there's 2. Or when they're swimming and we play a game where we jump in the water and we hold our breath. We have to count the seconds and we'll get up to maybe 6 seconds. But what's great is I'll do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, you were in there for 6 seconds. So I'm reinforcing what that number 6 means. So counting is okay, but just remember when a child is young, they have no concept of what it actually means. And we want them in Right Start to understand. And that's why we do a lot of the subitizing, because when you get into computation, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing is so much easier when they can grasp what quantities actually mean and not do it just by counting. And believe me, I was a finger counter. This way is so much better. All right, here's another question we get a lot. And let me move again. When is it important to sit on a topic, play a game for practicing, and when is it fine to just move on when mastery has not been achieved? And I think as parents, this is our biggest, ooh, do I move on? Do I not? And I will just let you know, I'm going to go through it real basic here. This is one of our lessons, and here's the objectives. It's so important to read the objectives. Here it says to introduce the term perimeter, to learn about square inches, to learn about square centimeters. This is nothing about mastering anything. So we're going to introduce the term perimeter, and you're going to go through this lesson. You're going to teach the lesson. You're going to get to the end in conclusion. And so you're asking, what is perimeter? And you're hoping your child's going to say something like, well, it's the distance around the area. And then you'll say, well, what is the area? And that's the amount of space something takes up, or that's what's inside the perimeter. If your child can answer that, move on. If you get to this point, you get to the end of the lesson, and you might have a child that's a little frustrated. They're not grasping it, but they're They're not upset. They're not throwing a tantrum. They're not crying. They're just a little, it's okay. Move on. If you get to a place where you have a child who's just really having a meltdown, or they are in tears and you're in tears, that is not a good time to move on. Stop the lesson. Take the next day and maybe play a game. Do something fun, make it enjoyable. Then come back and do the lesson again. Some children just need a little extra time to let everything stew around in their head and get it to understanding. And that's okay. That's the beauty of homeschooling. And I would recommend even considering doing some math year round, especially if you have a child who is more of a struggling learner or takes a little bit longer to learn things, because then it takes a lot of the stress off you and off of them. And honestly, if you're just doing math and maybe reading through the summer, it's so quick. Maybe 2 to 3 days a week is what I would say. And that's what we ended up doing, because I have children that my children are basically average or struggling learners. So that's where I'm at, or where I was at. And here's another one. It's just showing the perimeter. Here, introduce the term dozen to partition teams. Again, you get to the end. How many is a dozen? How much is a half dozen? If they can answer that, move on. If they really can't answer it, then that's a good way to know you should back off, play a game, make it fun, come back and do the lesson again. And this is just showing at the beginning to introduce the term dozen, and then in conclusion, how much is a dozen? And I'll go through this quickly, but what about a child who is bored? Right start is moving too slow. We get this, and I understand it. I'm a little envious. I did not have children who felt that right start was boring or that was moving too slow. For us, it was kind of a good pace. But there are children out there that grasp things quickly. And that's again the beauty of homeschooling. And yes, it's going to take a little bit more effort on your part, but that's just the way it goes when you have children that learn quickly like this. I'm going to use level C as an example. You don't need to do the review lessons. A lot of these addition lessons are lessons that they were learning in B, and if you're not jumping, but coming from B into C, some of these you're going to be able to move on from. So what I would recommend is, if you see down here, move this for a minute, lesson 23 is a review and game. So you can either double up lessons with your child. You don't have to do the warm-ups. Those are just for children who need that extra practice. You don't have to do every single problem. If they're understanding it, just do 1 or 2 problems. If they can explain to you what they're doing, they're understanding it. You could jump on to down to lesson 23, review and games. Give them the review. If they pass with flying colors, they can explain what they've done. Great, move on to the next lesson. If not, then okay, they're not moving as quick, they're not understanding it as well as I thought they did. And then you go back to the areas where they had some struggles. Another thing you could do is play some of the math card games. We have some games in here that are like puzzle building games that really help this child understand and work on their problem solving skills and logic. They're like A60 is magic square memory. Sorry, I wrote this down, so I'm looking over here. A61 is addition puzzles. Or, hey, create your own game. Give them the challenge to come up with a game. Another thing you could do, let me go back because we're right at the end, is you could dig a little deeper. Maybe take them to the library, find some books on your subject, or get on the internet, look up some videos, depending on what you're looking for. Or there's places, if you want to make up some extra worksheets or problems, you can do that too. There's a lot of things you could do to speed Right Start up. And lastly, for anything, you can contact us. You can contact, our information is on rightstartmath.com. You can call us, you can email us, you can go to our Facebook page, you can get on there and message us. There are so many different ways you can contact us. We like for you to contact us. We love to be able to encourage you. A lot of us are moms who have used this program. use it with multiple children, multiple types of children. And if there's anything we cannot answer, you get moved up the chain. You may even get to talk to Dr. Cotter herself, depending on the questions you have. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. I'll wait a few seconds here. If you have any questions, type them in the comment box. If not, think about it. If you do have any questions, you could always contact us through these other places.